Do you think that scarf makes you fit in here, Zarya? Tinsley Vaughn sneered, her voice laced with disdain for Zaria Bell's dark skin. In the opulent glow of Bal Harbour Shops, Miami, Zarya, a humble black philanthropist, faced a wall of prejudice. Quinlan Reese's mocking smile and Tinsley's harsh criticism stunned, targeting her modest past. Quinlan, in her sleek designer dress, laughed loudly. Tinsley taunted, "Nice try, but that outfit looks so cheap." Zarya's calm response held firm, but Quinlan's shove scattered the contents of her bag. An authoritative voice cut through. "I won't tolerate anyone mistreating my wife. Can Zarya crush their arrogance? Can kindness overcome hatred? Subscribe and hit the bell for our latest stories. Comment. Where and when are you watching? Miami at midnight. Guess how this unfolds. You won't believe the twist. What do you predict for Zarya's fight?" The Miami sky burned with the fierce hues of a dying sun, casting an orange and violet glow over the sleek glass towers of Bal Harbour Shops. The air hummed with the pulse of luxury. Sleek sports cars purred along the palm-lined boulevard, their chrome glinting like polished knives. The faint crash of ocean waves mingled with a distant jazz melody, weaving a tapestry of opulence that enveloped the city's elite playground. Amid this gilded scene stood Zaria Bell, a 30-year-old black woman whose presence seemed to defy the polished veneer around her. Her white t-shirt, thin and slightly faded, clung to her slender frame, paired with jeans worn soft by time. Her curly hair, loosely tied, danced in the warm breeze, catching flecks of golden light. She was no stranger to the weight of curious glances, yet her dark eyes held a quiet fire, unyielding and serene. Zarya stood at the edge of the plaza, her sneakers rooted to the pristine marble tiles, as she waited for her husband, Kael Draven. He was somewhere in the underground parking lot, maneuvering their understated sedan through a sea of Lamborghinis and Bentleys. Kael, the enigmatic billionaire behind Lumora, a renewable energy empire that powered half the nation's grid, was a man who could command boardrooms with a single glance. But to Zarya, he was the dreamer she'd met 7 years ago in a cramped Miami cafe. His eyes alight with visions of a greener world, his calloused hands scribbling equations on napkins. She'd been a volunteer then, pouring her heart into a nonprofit that lifted kids from the city's poorest corners into classrooms. Their worlds should have never collided. Her, a daughter of the Overtown slums. Him, a middle-class visionary with a knack for defying odds. Yet love, reckless and unapologetic, had bound them in a vow that silenced the world's whispers. Today, they'd come to Bal Harbour to find a gift for Kael's mother, a woman whose warmth had embraced Zarya as her own. A jade silk scarf, Zarya thought, would suit her elegance, simple yet timeless, like the love she'd shown them. The task felt personal, a quiet rebellion against the assistants who typically handled Kael's world. Zarya wanted her hands to choose this gift, to feel the fabric and imagine the smile it would bring. She glanced at her watch, the worn leather strap a relic from her college days. The minutes ticked by, and a smile tugged at her lips. Kael was probably cursing the maze of luxury cars below, his patience thinner than the Miami heat warranted. The crowd swirled around her, women in towering heels, their designer bags gleaming like trophies. Men in tailored suits, their voices low and clipped, sealing deals over cocktails. Zarya felt their eyes, subtle but sharp, sizing up her plain attire. Miami was a city of contrasts, where diversity painted the streets but prejudice lingered in sidelong glances. As a black woman married to a white billionaire, Zarya had navigated those looks before. The arched brows, the hushed questions. She'd learned to let them slide, like rain off glass. Her worth wasn't in their gaze, but in the lives she'd touched. The children she'd sent to school. The communities she'd helped light with Lumora's solar grids. Still, standing here, she felt the weight of being an outsider in a world that worshipped wealth. Zarya's fingers grazed the small canvas tote slung over her shoulder, its frayed edges a testament to her refusal to chase flash. She didn't need diamonds or Gucci to shine. Her light came from within, forged in the crucible of a childhood where love outshone scarcity. Her mother, a seamstress who'd stitched dreams into every worn dress, had taught her that. "You carry your value in your heart," she'd said, her voice a melody Zarya still heard. That lesson had carried her through the taunts of high school, the grind of scholarships, and the audacity of loving a man the world deemed out of her. Reach? A breeze swept through, carrying the salt of the sea and the faint perfume of jasmine. Zarya tilted her head, letting it cool her skin. She loved Miami, its vibrancy, its scars, its refusal to be tamed. This city was her home, even when it stung. She thought of Kael, his boyish grin when he'd proposed under a banyan tree, promising her a future built on courage and code. That memory anchored her now, as she stood in the shadow of Bal Harbour's excess. She wasn't here to compete with its sheen, but to carve a moment of meaning, a gift, a gesture, a quiet triumph. The sun dipped lower, painting the sky in strokes of fire. Zarya's eyes traced the horizon, where the ocean met the city's jagged edge. Somewhere in the depths of the parking lot, Kael was making his way back to her. She could almost hear his low chuckle, the one that melted her defenses. Whatever lay ahead in this glittering maze, they'd face it together, as they always had. For now, she stood alone, a beacon of grace in a world that didn't yet know her strength. The Miami dusk thickened, its amber glow softening the sharp edges of Bal Harbour Shops. The plaza hummed with the clatter of heels and the low purr of engines, a symphony of wealth that seemed to drown out the world beyond. Zaria Bell stood at the curb, her canvas tote slung over one shoulder, the faint scent of jasmine weaving through the warm air. Her dark eyes scanned the horizon, where the last slivers of sunlight bled into the sea. Guillaume was still navigating the labyrinth of the parking lot, likely muttering under his breath at the ostentatious cars clogging his path. Zarya's lips curved into a faint smile, picturing his exasperation. She could wait. Patience was a lesson her mother had sewn into her soul, alongside the courage to stand tall in a world that often looked past her. Then her gaze caught a flicker of movement across the street. An elderly woman, frail as a wisp, stood frozen on the sidewalk, her gnarled hand clutching a cane. Her gray hair, pinned in a loose bun, framed a face etched with time, and her eyes, clouded but sharp, darted nervously at the stream of cars, roaring past. The woman's shoulders hunched as if the weight of the city pressed her down. Zarya's heart stirred, a quiet pull she'd felt countless times before. Without a second thought, she stepped forward, her sneakers whispering against the pavement. The crowd parted around her, oblivious, their focus locked on the glittering storefronts. But Zarya saw only the woman, a solitary figure against the tide of Miami's rush. "Ma'am, would you like help crossing the street?" Zarya's voice was gentle, warm as the fading sun, her smile a beacon in the twilight. The woman looked up, startled, her eyes searching Zarya's face. For a moment, doubt lingered in her gaze, as if kindness from a stranger was a language she'd forgotten. Then a tremulous smile broke through. "Oh, bless you, child. This road's too much for me today," she said, her voice a soft rasp. Seasoned by years, Zarya extended a hand steady and sure, feeling the woman's fragile fingers curl around her own. "I've got you," she said, guiding her to the crosswalk. The woman introduced herself as Evelina Morrow, her words halting but laced with gratitude. Together they stepped into the street, Zarya matching Evelina's slow, deliberate pace. Cars slowed, their headlights slicing through the dusk, some drivers tapping their horns in fleeting impatience. Zarya didn't flinch. Her focus was a shield, protecting Evelina from the chaos. Each step was a quiet defiance of the city's relentless rhythm, a testament to the power of a single act of care. On the other side, Zarya led Evelina to a wrought iron bench tucked beneath a palm tree, its fronds swaying in the breeze. She eased the older woman down, then reached into her tote for a bottle of water. "Here, take a sip," she offered, pressing it into Evelina's hands. Evelina's eyes glistened, not with tears but with a spark of recognition, as if Zarya had unlocked something long buried. "You're a rare one," she murmured, her voice steadier now. Folks don't stop anymore. They're too busy chasing what shines. Zarya sat beside her, the bench cool against her thighs. It's no trouble, she said, her smile soft but resolute. I run a non-profit for kids in tough neighborhoods. Helping feels like breathing to me. Evelina's face lit up, her cane tapping the ground as she leaned closer. A teacher's heart, she said, almost to herself. I taught school for 40 years, you know. Tried to show my students that kindness is the only thing that lasts. Her words carried the weight of a life spent pouring wisdom into others, and Zarya felt a kinship, as if their souls had brushed against the same truth. They talked, the conversation flowing like a gentle stream. Evelina shared stories of her classroom days, of children who'd found hope in her lessons, of a Miami that once moved more slowly. Zarya listened, her heart swelling. She spoke of her work, scholarships for kids in Overtown, solar lights for communities forgotten by the grid. Evelina's eyes never left her, drinking in every word. Your mother raised you right, she said, her voice thick with pride for a stranger she'd known for only minutes. Zarya's throat tightened, memories of her mother's calloused hands and fierce love flooding back. She did, she whispered, her gaze drifting to the horizon. The moment felt sacred, a fleeting connection woven in the fading light. Zarya glanced at her watch, wondering if Kael was near, but she wasn't ready to leave Evelina yet. She wanted to ensure the older woman was safe, perhaps call her a ride. The crowd surged around them, a blur of silk and status, but Zarya and Evelina were an island of quiet grace. Then, from the corner of her eye, Zarya caught two figures emerging from the glass doors of Bal Harbour. Their laughter, sharp and careless, sliced through the air. Tinsley Vaughn, her platinum hair gleaming, and Quinlan Reese, her designer dress a flaunting of wealth, paused on the steps, their eyes locking onto Zarya with a glint of recognition and disdain. The Miami twilight draped Bal Harbour Shops, in a velvet haze, the last embers of the sun swallowed by the horizon. The plaza pulsed with the rhythm of wealth, crisp laughter, the clink of champagne flutes, the whisper of silk against skin. Zaria Bell stood beside a wrought-iron bench, her hand still warm from Evelina Morrow's fragile grip. The elderly woman, now settled comfortably, clutched her cane, her eyes gleaming with gratitude. Zarya's white t-shirt fluttered in the chill breeze, her jeans a quiet rebellion against the opulence around her. She glanced at Evelina, ensuring she was safe, her heart buoyed by their shared moment. The city's frenetic energy seemed to pause in their small corner, a fragile bubble of kindness amidst the glittering chaos. But that bubble was about to burst. From the glass doors of the shopping center, two figures emerged, their silhouettes sharp against the glowing storefronts. Tinsley Vaughn, her platinum hair a beacon under the floodlights, strutted forward, her heels clicking like gunfire. Quinlan Reese flanked her, her designer dress a cascade of emerald silk, a Chanel bag dangling from her wrist like a trophy. Their laughter sliced through the air, brittle and cruel, as their eyes locked onto Zarya. Recognition flashed across Tinsley's face, followed by a smirk that curled like smoke. "Zaria Bell," she called, her voice a mocking lilt loud enough to turn heads. "From Roosevelt High, right? My God, it is you." Zarya straightened, her dark eyes meeting Tinsley's with a calm that belied the sudden tightening in her chest. She knew these women, knew the sting of their words from high school, where their wealth and privilege had cast her as an outsider. "It's been a while," she said, her tone even, offering a faint smile that held no warmth. Evelina glanced up, her brow furrowing, sensing the shift in the air. Tinsley stepped closer, her gaze raking over Zarya's outfit with undisguised disdain. "Still dressing like you're from the slums, huh? What are you doing here, playing hero with this old lady?" She gestured at Evelina, her voice dripping with scorn. "Trying to look like you belong?" Quinlan laughed, a sharp grating sound tossing her hair as she joined the assault. "Look at her, Tinsley. That t-shirt's probably from a thrift store, standing outside Bal Harbour. What, hoping to sneak in as a janitor?" The words landed. Like blows, each one crafted to cut, Passers-by slowed, their curiosity drawn by the spectacle, some whispering behind manicured hands. Zarya's fingers tightened on her tote's strap, but her face remained a mask of composure. She'd faced this venom before. Classmates who'd mocked her patched clothes, her overtown roots, her skin that seemed to invite their contempt. Those years had forged her resilience, a steel core beneath her quiet grace. I was helping. Someone who needed it, Zarya said, her voice steady, nodding toward Evelina. That's not playing hero, it's just being human. Evelina's hand reached for hers, a small gesture of solidarity, her eyes fierce despite her frailty. But Tinsley's laugh was a blade, cutting through Zarya's words. Human? Please. You're still the same nobody from Roosevelt, pretending. You're more than you are. House poor, acting all noble. She leaned in, her perfume sharp and cloying. This place is for winners, Zarya, not charity cases. Quinlan circled closer, her eyes glinting with malice. And those jeans, girl? They're an insult to this zip code. Why don't you scurry back to wherever you crawled from? She flicked her wrist as if dismissing a servant, her Chanel bag swinging like a pendulum. The crowd's murmurs grew, a mix of amusement and discomfort, but no one intervened. Zarya's jaw tightened, memories of high school flooding back. Lunchroom, Snickers, locker room taunts, the weight of being invisible unless she was a target. Yet she'd survived, thrived, and built a life that mattered. These women with their polished cruelty couldn't undo that. You don't know me, Zarya said, her voice low but firm, each word a stone laid against their assault, and you don't get to decide who belongs. Evelina squeezed her hand, whispering, You're better than them, child. The words were a lifeline, grounding Zarya in the truth she'd always carried. Tinsley's smirk faltered, just for a heartbeat, before she recovered, tossing her hair. Keep dreaming. House poor, you'll never fit in here, Quinlan added. Run along before you embarrass yourself more. Zarya took a breath, the salt of the sea mingling with the ache in her chest. She wouldn't let their poison take root. I'm here to do what I came for, she said, turning to Evelina. You okay if I head inside? Evelina nodded, her eyes fierce with pride. Go on, child. Don't let them dim you. Zarya gave her a grateful smile, then straightened, her tote swinging lightly as she walked toward the glass doors. The crowd parted, their whispers trailing her like shadows. Tinsley and Quinlan's laughter echoed behind, but Zarya's steps were steady, her heart a quiet drum of resolve. She was no stranger to battles like this, and she'd face whatever lay beyond those doors with the same strength that had carried her this far. The glass doors of Bal Harbour Shops parted with a whisper, ushering Zaria Bell into a world of crystalline light and hushed extravagance. Chandeliers dripped from the ceiling, casting prisms across marble floors that gleamed like frozen rivers. The air was thick with the scent of oud and roses, a perfume as curated as the designer bags lining the vitrines. Zarya's sneakers moved, softly, almost reverently over the polished stone, her faded jeans and white t-shirt, a stark contrast to the parade of silk and sequins around her. The sting of Tinsley Vaughn and Quinlan Reese's words lingered, their laughter still echoing in her ears like a taunt from a distant past. Yet Zarya walked on, her canvas tote swinging lightly, her dark eyes fixed on the task ahead, a jade silk scarf for Kael's mother, a gift to carry her love. But as she wove through the labyrinth of luxury, her mind slipped backward, pulled into the shadows of memory. Overtown Miami had been her cradle, a neighborhood where hope wrestled with hardship. The streets were alive with the clatter of children's laughter, the hum of gospel from open windows, the grind of buses carrying dreams to nowhere. Zarya's childhood home was a cramped apartment, its walls papered with her mother's prayers and her ambitions. Her mother, Lila, a seamstress with fingers worn to the bone, stitched dresses for neighbors by lamplight. Her voice a soft hymn of resilience. Your heart's your crown, Zarya, she'd say, threading a needle with precision. Wear it proudly no matter what they throw at you. Those words were armor, shielding Zarya from the world's sharp edges. Money was Scarce meals often stretched thin, but love filled the gaps, a currency richer than gold. High school at Roosevelt was a different battleground. Tinsley and Quinlan ruled its halls, their wealth a scepter, their beauty a shield. Zarya, with her hand-me-down clothes and skin that drew sneers, was an easy target. Lunchrooms became arenas, where Tinsley's giggles cut like knives, her whispered house poor a brand Zarya couldn't shake. Quinlan's taunts were bolder, mocking Zarya's braided hair or the patched backpack she carried. "Why even try?" Quinlan once sneered, tossing her hair as classmates laughed. Zarya burned inside, but she never broke. She buried herself. In books, her grades a ladder out of their reach. Scholarships became her wings, carrying her to college, where she vowed to lift others as she rose. The nonprofit she built was her answer to those years, a beacon for kids like her, proof that dreams could outshine disdain. It was in college, during a humid Miami summer, that Zarya met Kael Draven. She'd been volunteering at a community center, distributing food to families hit hard by a storm. Kael, then a lanky engineer with a mop of dark hair and a notebook full of solar panel sketches, showed up to fix a generator. His hands were smudged with grease, his eyes alight with a quiet fire that mirrored her own. They talked under a flickering streetlight, her passion for justice sparking against his vision for a cleaner world. "You're building futures," he said, his voice low, earnest. "That's power." Zarya laughed, brushing off the compliment, but his gaze held her, seeing past the worn t-shirt to the strength within. Their first date was at a hole-in-the-wall taco stand, where he confessed his fear of failing, and she shared her dread of being unseen. Love grew there, fierce and unyielding, a bond that defied the world's rules. Kael's rise was meteoric, his company Lumora lighting up skylines and Forbes covers. Zarya stood beside him, not as a trophy, but as a partner, her non-profit thriving. In parallel, their marriage was a quiet affair, under a banyan tree in a Miami park with her mother's tears and his mother's embrace sealing their vows. Yet the world never stopped whispering about her skin, her roots, her place beside a billionaire. Zarya met those whispers with the same resolve that had carried her through Roosevelt's halls. "You're my home," Kael once told her, his hand cupping her face. "Let them talk." She clung to that now as Bal Harbour's opulence pressed in, its mirrors reflecting a woman who'd fought for every inch of her worth. Zarya's steps slowed near a boutique, its window displaying scarves that shimmered like liquid jade. Her reflection stared back, a woman shaped by struggle and love, unbroken by the cruelty she'd just faced outside. Tinsley and Quinlan's words were echoes of a past she'd outgrown, but they still pricked, stirring doubts she thought she'd buried. Could she ever truly belong in a place like this? She shook her head, dismissing the thought. Belonging wasn't about fitting their mold. It was about carrying her truth. Her mother's voice rang clear. "Your heart's your crown." Zarya squared her shoulders, her toed a badge of defiance. She'd find that scarf not for their approval, but for the love she carried. The boutique's glow beckoned, a quiet promise of the task ahead, and Zarya stepped forward, her heart steady, her resolve a flame that no scorn could extinguish. The heart of Bal Harbour Shops pulsed with a crystalline brilliance, its chandeliers casting a kaleidoscope of light across the marble atrium. Zaria Bell stood before a boutique's glass counter, her dark eyes tracing the delicate folds of a jade. Silk scarf, its sheen like a whispered promise of elegance. The scarf was perfect for Kael's mother, a woman whose warmth had woven Zarya into her family. Zarya's fingers hovered above the fabric, her white t-shirt and faded jeans a quiet defiance in a sea of designer opulence. The weight of Tinsley, Vaughn and Quinlan Reese's earlier scorn lingered, their words like thorns caught in her skin, but she pushed them aside. She was here for love, not their approval. The boutique's air was cool, scented with amber, and for a moment, Zarya felt a flicker of peace, until a sharp laugh shattered it. Tinsley Vaughn swept into the boutique, her platinum hair glinting, like a blade under the lights, her heels clicking with predatory precision. Quinlan Reese trailed her, emerald silk dress shimmering, a Chanel bag swinging like a weapon. Their eyes locked onto Zarya, and Tinsley's lips curled into a venomous smirk. "Zaria Bell, playing dress-up now?" she called, her voice a whip that drew the gaze of nearby shoppers. "Staring at that scarf? Poor thing, you think you can afford it, or are you planning to swipe it when no one's looking?" Her laugh was a serrated edge slicing through the boutique's hush. Quinlan stepped forward, her eyes glinting with malice. "Country girl, always dreaming," she sneered. "That t-shirt's an eyesore. Get out before you ruin this place." Shoppers turned, their whispers buzzing like static, some stifling giggles behind manicured hands. Zarya's fingers tightened on her canvas tote, her heart a drumbeat against the onslaught. She'd faced this cruelty before. High school halls where Tinsley and Quinlan had branded her house poor, their wealth a wall she could never breach. Yet those years had forged her, tempered her spirit in the fire of adversity. She met Tinsley's gaze, her voice calm but unyielding. "I'm just looking," she said. "What's wrong with that?" The simplicity of her words was a shield, but Tinsley pounced, closing the distance. "Wrong? You dare to stand here, you nobody!" she hissed, her perfume sharp as a blade. "This is for people who belong, not charity cases like you." Quinlan leaned in, her voice a venomous purr. "Those jeans, an insult to Bal Harbour. Why don't you crawl back to Overtown?" She reached out, her fingers brushing Zaria's tote with a deliberate shove, sending a notebook and pen clattering to the floor. The crowd gasped, a mix of shock and amusement, but Zarya didn't flinch. She knelt, gathering her things with steady hands, her dignity a quiet rebuke. "You don't know me," she said, rising, her eyes locking onto Quinlan's, "and you don't decide my place." Her words carried the weight of a lifetime's resilience, a spark that flickered in the boutique's sterile glow. Before Tinsley could retort, a voice boomed, deep and commanding, cutting through the air like thunder. "Who dare speak to my wife like that?" Kael Draven strode into the boutique, his gray suit sharp as a blade, his eyes blazing with controlled fury. The crowd parted, murmurs rippling as they recognized him. Lumora's billionaire, a titan whose name graced Forbes. Tinsley and Quinlan froze, their faces paling, mouths agape. Kael's presence was a force, his broad shoulders filling this space, but his gaze softened as it found Zarya. He crossed to her, resting a hand on her shoulder, his touch a fortress. "You okay?" he asked, his voice low, laced with concern. Zarya nodded, a faint smile curving her lips. "It's nothing," she said, her calm a testament to her strength. Kael turned to Tinsley and Quinlan, his eyes narrowing, voice cold as steel. "You call my wife a nobody? She's built schools in neighborhoods you'd never set foot in, brought light to communities you've never seen. What have you done but flaunt your privilege and judge?" His words were a scalpel, precise and unsparing. Tinsley stammered, "We were just joking," but her voice crumbled under his stare. Quinlan clutched her bag, silent, her bravado extinguished. Kael's hand tightened on Zarya's shoulder, a silent vow. "Have you picked the scarf?" he asked, his tone softening as if the world beyond them had faded. Zarya gestured to the jade silk, her voice steady. "This one. It's perfect." The boutique clerk, who'd watched in stunned silence, hurried to wrap it, her hands trembling. Kael's gaze lingered on Zarya, pride and love burning in his eyes. He paid without a word, the transaction a mere footnote to the moment's weight. Zarya slipped the package into her tote, her heart full, not from the purchase but from the man beside her who saw her as she truly was. They turned to leave, Tinsley and Quinlan shrinking into the crowd, their arrogance shattered. The boutique's lights gleamed, but Zarya's quiet strength outshone them all, a beacon in the face of cruelty. The glass doors of Bal Harbour Shops slid shut behind Zaria Bell and Kael Draven, sealing away the boutique's crystalline glow, and the echoes of Tinsley Vaughn and Quinlan Reese's shattered arrogance. The Miami night unfurled before them, a tapestry of velvet sky pierced by the city's electric pulse. Zarya clutched the small package in her canvas tote, the jade silk scarf within a quiet triumph, a gift chosen with love for Kael's mother. Her white t-shirt caught the breeze, her jeans a soft whisper against her skin, but her heart burned, with a warmth that outshone the plaza's floodlights. Kael's hand rested on her shoulder, a steady anchor, his gray suit rumpled just enough to betray the fire he'd unleashed inside. His eyes, fierce yet tender, lingered on her as if she were the only light in Miami's glittering sprawl. The plaza buzzed with life, couples clinking glasses at outdoor cafes, chauffeurs polishing sleek cars, the distant wail of a saxophone weaving through the air. Zarya's steps slowed as they neared the wrought iron bench where she'd left. Evelina Morrow. The elderly woman was still there, her frail frame bathed in the soft glow of a street lamp, her cane propped beside her. Beside her stood a man in his 40s, his white shirt crisp, his face etched with a quiet strength. Evelina's eyes lit up as she saw Zarya, her hand lifting in a frail wave. "There's my angel," she called, her voice a rasp of warmth that cut through the night's clamor. Zarya crossed to her, Kael at her side, the weight of the day's battles falling away. "You're still here," Zarya said, her smile soft, kneeling to meet Evelina's gaze. The man extended a hand, his grip firm. "I'm Jovian Holt, Evelina's son," he said, his voice carrying the cadence of someone who'd spent years healing others. "My mother told me about you, how you helped her cross the street, stayed to keep her company." His eyes, warm like his mother's, held gratitude. "She said you're one of the good ones." Evelina nodded, her bun loosening as she leaned forward. "This child's got a heart bigger than this whole city," she said, her words a benediction. Zarya's cheeks warmed, her humility a shield against praise. "It was nothing," she said, but Evelina's hand found hers, squeezing with surprising strength. "It's everything," she insisted. "You stopped when the world kept running. That's what matters." Jovian's gaze shifted to Kael, recognition dawning. "You're Kael Draven, aren't you? Lumora's founder?" Kael nodded, his smile reserved but genuine. "That's me. But today I'm just Zarya's husband." He glanced at her, pride flickering in his eyes, a silent vow that spoke louder than words. Jovian shared that he was a doctor at a local clinic, serving communities like Overtown, where Zarya had grown up. "Evelina," he said, often volunteered at a community center, teaching kids to read despite her age. "She's stubborn about helping others," he said, chuckling. "Says it keeps her young." Zarya laughed, the sound bright against the night. "I see where you get it," she told Evelina, their bond a thread woven in shared purpose. Kael listened, then spoke, his voice low but resolute. "Zarya's non-profit supports places like your center," he said to Jovian. "We'd like to help. Equipment, funding, whatever you need." Jovian's eyes widened, gratitude mingling with surprise. "That would change lives," he said, his voice thick. From the corner of her eye, Zarya caught a glimpse of Tinsley and Quinlan lingering near a fountain, their designer silhouettes diminished in the distance. Their eyes darted away, their earlier bravado replaced by unease. Zarya felt no anger, only a quiet hope that they'd glimpsed something beyond their prejudice, a spark of what truly mattered. She turned back to Evelina, squeezing her hand. "You take care, okay? I'll visit your center soon." Evelina's smile was a sunrise, her voice firm. "You do that, child. Keep shining." Zarya and Kael walked to their car, the scarf safe in her tote, the night wrapping around them like a cloak. The drive home was quiet, Miami's lights blurring past, a constellation of dreams and struggles. Zarya leaned against the window, her thoughts drifting to the day's arc, from Tinsley's venom to Evelina's warmth, from Kael's fierce defense to the promise of new connections. Her heart, tempered by years of hardship, felt full, not from Bal Harbour's dazzle, but from the love and purpose that defined her. At home, Their modest Miami condo glowed with soft lamplight, a haven far from the plaza's excess. Zarya spread the scarf across their dining table, its jade folds catching the light. Kael stood behind her, his arms encircling her waist. "She'll love it," he murmured, his breath warm against her ear. Zarya turned, meeting his gaze, her smile a quiet victory. "It's not just the scarf," she said. "It's us." They wrapped the gift together, their hands brushing, a ritual of love that needed no audience. Outside, Miami pulsed on, but in their home, Zarya's light, forged in kindness, anchored by love, shone brighter than any chandelier, a beacon that no darkness could dim. What did Zarya's journey spark in you? Share your thoughts below. How? Did her kindness or Kael's stand inspire you? Thank you for joining us in this tale of heart and courage. Your presence lights up our stories. Subscribe and stay tuned for more, where every voice matters. Until next time, keep shining your own light.